About 1,000 years ago, the inevitable war against the strongest demons began. One day during the war, monsters suddenly crossed the border and attacked humanity. To survive, the humans had no choice but to start this bloody battle. There was no end to this war. The whole earth was awash in scarlet. Under the onslaught of the strongest monsters, the surviving humans had no choice but to retreat. Suddenly, a mage appeared, who arrived on the battlefield riding a black dragon and began to destroy the monsters. Frightened by such immense power, the monsters immediately began to retreat and soon fled away. The people could not believe this joy. They immediately began to praise their hero. However, having been mortally wounded during the battle, the hero soon died. The one who was chosen, the one who was carried away by power, the one who did not succumb to temptations, they are waiting for their hero. The live broadcast from the venue reported only one thing: the main event of the day, this 17th battle for the world title. The ring announcer was informing the audience that the fight was about to begin, and it was time to get comfortable. The blue corner in the ring was occupied by a ruthless and relentless Patrick. Upon hearing his name, people immediately started shouting negative comments in his direction. Now it's time for the red corner. He has 37 out of 37 matches won. This is a world champion with a 100% knockout record. This guy has no equal. His name is Kim Jin-ho. Judging from the last fight, Patrick realized that his opponent didn't use his legs in the last fight. He assumes his opponent is injured. Kim Jin-ho is already in his 40s. If his leg injury is true, a new champion will probably be born before their eyes. After the sound of the gong, both opponents slowly but surely began to approach each other. As he got closer to his opponent, Patrick realized that he inspires incredible fear, which is expected from a champion. A thought flashed through his mind. What if he immediately grabbed Kim Jin-ho's leg? Patrick suddenly began to attack. How dare he come out against him with a sore leg? It's total disrespect. Patrick was determined to make sure his opponent could never use it again. No sooner had he touched his opponent than Kim Jin-ho knocked him out with a single punch of his own. Ring announcer reports that after a lightning-fast punch, Patrick can't get up. First round ends in a knockout. Looking at his opponent lying in the ring, Kim Jin-ho asked the question, does Patrick now understand why he doesn't use his legs? Seeing Kim Jin-ho leaving, the coach asked where he went since he hadn't answered reporters' questions yet. The guy said the coach can answer them himself. Have him let him know when the next fight comes up. The coach replied that then at least let him drive the car, because the weather outside was disgusting. Kim Jin-ho said it's okay, because there's traffic on the roads right now. He'd rather get a run in. The coach jumped out into the street and shouted that it was at least 30 kilometers to his house. Immediately, the trainer was pounced upon by journalists with questions. They asked him to give a few words about today's fight. Asked when they would hold a press conference and if they purposely planned the move with the leg injury. There was only one thing being talked about all over the news. Kim Jin-ho is off to a stunning knockout start. He feels sorry for himself, because for the rest of his career, he won't find an opponent he'll be interested in fighting. After reaching his house, Kim Jin-ho immediately took a shower because the weather was really unseasonable. Sitting down at his computer, the guy immediately opened up a video game called The Last Savior. It's so complicated that even the Koreans stopped playing it. But for the past 10 years, Kim Jin-ho has been playing it absolutely every day. Because his life had been all about training, hardening, and battles with the strongest opponents, he had long since burned out from it. But only here, in this game, he can feel that very competitive spirit. The battle in the game had begun. Seeing his life in the game coming to an end, the guy couldn't believe he was going to lose like that. He tried to dodge with all his might, but it wasn't that easy. The guy didn't understand why exactly in today's battle his enemy was so predictable. And it's today more than ever that he has such a good offense in the game. Ironically, he started the fight wanting to win, yet he is afraid to win. He said for the Demon King to gain strength, he can do it. The guy's words are supportive, and his hands are flawless in attack. The game congratulated Kim Jin-ho on his victory, as he managed to fend off the Demon King Izar. That's right, Kim Jin-ho became a champion in 2 different worlds on the same day. He was upset because he realized he had no one to fight. Maybe we should go up against a brown bear. Suddenly, there was thunder outside the window, followed by a flash of lightning. It hit Kim Jin-ho's window. When he woke up, he realized that he was dizzy and his whole body was burning. He felt that it was raining, but he didn't realize when he had gone outside. Suddenly, someone put a hand on his shoulder and called the 218th. The guy said he's been calling him forever and asked what he was doing. There's no time to just stand around right now. They were about to come out of there. Looking up, he saw the 172nd number. Everyone ran towards the huge gate. The boy shouted that he had to pack up if he didn't want to rot there for the rest of his life. Today is their last chance. They can get out of this damn carrion. Kim Jinho couldn't believe that this place was the carry-on. The guy was yelling at him about how he couldn't stall. He needed to move faster. Kim Jinho didn't know what to say to her. Was this whole thing a nightmare? Many of the prisoners tried to open those very same huge gates. He realized it wasn't like a dream at all. So the guy was really inside the game he was playing. And a prisoner too? It's all questionable, but he's got to get out of there first. He grabbed the 172nd's arm and told her to stop. The boy replied that now was not the time at all. The guy said it just can't happen in carrion. It's too simple. He said it was because General Clark wasn't there right now. He recently left, so this may be their last chance. Before he could tell the guy to pack up and run, Kim Jinho grabbed the guy and dragged him in the opposite direction. He asked what he was doing, but the guy insisted that if it was true, Kim understood the situation a little. His championship sense tells him that there is no way you can go beyond that gate. 172 screamed for the scumbag to let him go. The gates had opened, they were now free. But as soon as everyone started running out, something strange was happening outside the gate. But the guy wouldn't stop yelling that he had to get out. As it turned out, outside the gate stood the very same General Clark and many of his soldiers with swords in their hands. He called the prisoners lowlifes, after which he ordered the soldiers to kill them all. 172nd couldn't figure out how the general got there. Kim shouted to him that it was a trap. All those who tried to escape are no longer alive. The soldiers dealt with every last one of them. General Clark ordered all survivors to fall in line. They were ordered to stand still and not move, the 172nd holding on from the last of their strength. Suddenly, the guy threw up right in front of General Clark's eyes. Grabbing him by the hair, General Clark shouted that he had ordered everyone not to move. He reiterated once more, "Whoever dares to move will be punished." Kim Jinho realized that there was no leniency, even for the young. It seems that a new massacre could break out at any moment, so he would have to fight. In an instant, the general stood before him and said he was lucky or lacked the courage to escape. He talked about how all mages are just cowards. He was ashamed to be their opponent. Leaning closer to his face, the general said the guy would regret not dying today and called him Arahan. Seeing his reflection in the puddle, the boy wondered if he was Arahan. It's been a week of living in the labor camp. There is only one daily activity there, collecting stone towers. A useless endeavor to get prisoners to work. After a week in this body, Kim realized something. First of all, this body's very weak. Just lifting a single stone makes his breathing hitch. He's about 15 years old. Second, the use of magic. The guy tried it at night when no one was watching, but it didn't work. It's strange that Arahan can't use magic. The Arahans are the strongest family of magicians, so why can't he use it? Or maybe that's why he was thrown out there. That sounds like something the Arahans would do. He was pulled from his thoughts by a soldier who ordered him to move the tower to the other side. The system said that due to the large amount of information, synchronization was delayed. He couldn't wait. Once there, he started exercising regularly, but the only food there is this. Approaching him, the 172nd asked, "Is the lad not going to eat bread again today?" Kim replied that he didn't, after which he handed the guy his portion of bread. The guy realized that everyone else was avoiding him, but this guy was special. The Arahans are the strongest magicians. Rumor has it that their red eyes are a curse for how many people they have killed, and that anyone who looks into them will die. They're about the same age. The guy doesn't have any memories of how he ended up in this body, but they seem to be friends. However, how could someone so young be in the canyon? He said he had to be as careful as possible. Because of him, their workload has been increased, something the others aren't too happy about. He realized that explained all the murderous looks he was catching. He added that he should be especially wary of 589. He's the ringleader of the prisoners. He's also famous in the arena. Kim Jinho replied that it was dangerous for him to walk near him then. The guy said that there was no hiding it, that they knew each other. He just added that he might get in the way, so he'd better go somewhere else. The guy didn't realize what he was doing all of a sudden. Turning to the side, the guy told him that what he was so afraid was about to happen. It was obvious from the face of the 172nd that this was the last thing he would think about. 579 turned to Arahan asking if he was the reason they had added work. Before Kim Jin-ho could reply that he just wanted to exercise, his fist had already hit his face with all its force. There was no stopping him with that blow. He grabbed his opponent by the shirt and slammed his knee straight into his face. Everyone stood with their mouths open, for no one expected the young man to pounce on the head. It wasn't until the head asked what he was doing that the guy realized he felt absolutely nothing. So weak was Kim Jin-ho's body since he couldn't even do the slightest damage to the chapter. At that moment, 589 grabbed him by his suit, lifted him off the ground, and threw him into the wall with all his might. The head asked where the rat fucker was going. He wasn't done with him yet. It was at that moment that the system alerted Kim Jin-ho that the synchronization progress was complete. He felt his body fill with energy. The boy was unstoppable. Looking and grinning at his opponent right in the face, Kim Jin-ho shouted for him to approach. 589 laughed and said he was even kicked out of his family. Who does he think he is now? Kim Jin-ho shouted for the head not to flutter his tongue and stepped closer to him. Spreading out, the man shouted that he was about to get his wish. Rats need to know their place, and the guy apparently doesn't. The chapter will fix that now. But no one expected such a small boy to handle the head with such ease, with just a few blows. The huge body of the 589th was on the ground. Kim Jin-ho said that he didn't even plan to use his legs, but that's what happened. At that moment, the other prisoners realized that their head was lying motionless on the ground, after which they decided to attack the guy themselves. They decided to make the guy's death agonizing, but suddenly fear appeared on their faces, and they stopped abruptly. Kim Jin-ho said that if they move, they will have to spoon-feed their head for the rest of his life. He shouted that he'd better have them bring the warden there, but none of the men moved. Kim Jin-ho said that if they think he's joking, then why don't they rip the head of his arm off? Someone headed towards the exit and shouted that they would not spare him next time. Soon they took the head and left. While in his room, the friend began to question where he learned this. Had he always been this tall? The guy thought they were about the same height. He replied that it's because of carrying stones. He is advised to do the same. The guy asked what rocks have to do with height. Synchronization did transfer his vitals from reality to there, except he's got a baby's body in there. He did get to see the actual stats of his game character, though. For a moment, he thought it was a mistake, for his magic was at 0. But he was an Arahan mage. How could that be possible? Why on earth had he gotten possessed by a sucker like that? Watching from the sidelines, she didn't understand what he was doing. Kim Jin-ho couldn't believe that such horrible characters existed. That's probably why he was kicked out of the family. First, he needs to calm down and slowly check everything out. It's a good thing the rest of the specs are 100 each. I don't care if he has penalties. In a body like that, he wouldn't be able to use everything to the max. Penalties can be worked out with hardening, but food would still be scarce. And it's also the first time he's seen such features, and they're all high-ranked. He's only familiar with 2 of them. He got them himself when he was playing. If magic wasn't at 0, the guy would think it was a cheating character. The rest can be learned gradually. He'll try to work something out with magic too. The guard shouted that the numbers he was about to call should go out. The guy said they're here again. Kim Jin-ho didn't understand who these people were. Why exactly were they being asked to get out in order to go somewhere? She said they were death row inmates. They must have been summoned for a last meal. It's when you're allowed to eat what you want before you die. The guy was clearly interested in what he said. He abruptly decided to ask her what her name was. The girl was obviously surprised. He replied that they only called each other by number. But he said he was Ryu. Since he was a poor man, he had no surname. Then he asked what his name was. The guy replied that his name was Zed Arahan, and then asked, Ryu wants to get out of there, doesn't he? If that's what he's talking about, he's definitely not going to be there for long. The guy's got a reason to get out of there. Zed asked if he had thought about how to escape. The boy replied that there was only one way, through the gate, but the general always had the keys. Without thinking long, the guy asked him what was going to bring him down. Ryu replied that there was nothing wrong with his head, for the general was a knight of the 5th circle. General Clark, a classic knight full of hatred for mages. In this world, knights and mages hate each other. A retired knight of the 5th circle? Can he beat him? But there must be another way. You can just steal the keys after all. The guy asked him if he didn't know that. Kids from down under stick their hands in other people's pockets more often than they say hello. But there's always a bunch of eyes around the general, so there aren't many opportunities. With a grin on his face, Zed thought that he seemed to be slowly beginning to figure out how to get out of there. The guards shouted for the workday to begin. The general decided to increase the workload again. So now they are not walking, but running. Everyone immediately became indignant. The guard asked, "Are they disobeying the general's orders now?" As soon as one of the prisoners said it was really hard, something sharp jabbed at his neck. The guard replied that he was only relaying the general's words. If there is a complaint, they know who to complain to. The prisoner asked if this was too much. What was the reason for what was happening? The guard replied, "Don't they know who it's because of yet?" As soon as everyone stared in the guy's direction, the guard immediately said he'd better go outside for a smoke. Ryu told Zed with concern in his voice that the atmosphere there was clearly heating up. The boy merely asked him to step away. He realized that Clark was the one provoking the conflict. But since he couldn't do it personally, he hoped the criminals would kill him. They didn't understand how a glorious knight could be capable of such meanness. The wardens are with them this time, and it won't be as easy as yesterday. Zed can't die. The prisoners started shouting that they had to kill him or they would all die like that themselves. Zed said they got it right. Nothing can be done about it. They started screaming that Arahan's blood is playing in him to the last. They think he's going to bluff. Zed yelled that he couldn't stand around waiting for them to kill him, could he? The guy needed to blow off steam. Zed said, "Let everyone run to him." The guy once envisioned such a thing in the octagon. How he would be attacked in such a large crowd, not one by one. Now he felt it and understood it. Now he wants to fight more opponents. Let them attack more actively. Hiding behind a large rock, Ryu couldn't get enough of what he was now seeing. Someone called out to her, and turning, he saw the prisoner. This was obviously not a good thing. Zed realized that this was it. That feeling of pleasure in avoiding a blow and the pleasure of a precision strike. He finally felt it and got a taste for it. He wanted more and more. Someone called out to him from behind. The prisoner turned around and told him to stop struggling and let him die in peace. He'd better save his friend, or wouldn't he? All Ryu managed to say was to repeat his name. Calling them scum, the guy yelled that they had made a very grave mistake. The guy said they made a grave mistake. They're trash who can only talk with their mouths. The man replied, "Let him consider it an honor to stand against him. He is a knight of the second circle. And the guy's an Arakan with no magic. All he had to do was die, and then he started attacking for Zed. 245 didn't even notice how quickly the boy disappeared. When he looked back, he saw that his friend had already been released from the hands of the head. The man yelled, "What did the guy do? He can't use magic, can he?" 218 replied that it wasn't magic at all, then struck in an instant. At this moment, the general appeared before the 218 and immediately demanded an explanation. Suddenly, Ryu started yelling that the guy was just a victim. He said that he was taken hostage and his friend tried to kill him. It was self-defense. Looking around, the general thought that his subordinates were assholes. Then he asked, "Did the boy have mana?" As soon as Zed said no, something strange began to happen. Everyone around them suddenly had trouble breathing and fell to the ground. The guy realized that he wasn't taking damage from the general's energy, but it's impossible to resist a knight of the 5th rank. As it turned out, it was a feature he hadn't seen before. Could it be the immunity feature? In the real world, his body reached the top. It would be a shame to waste such a thing on some knight. This game knows something. General Clark couldn't believe this guy was standing still. He's just some kind of fool. He doesn't even have mana. That's probably more than just a rank C. The guy thought, what's the general going to do? Clark stood there with his mouth open, as he didn't understand how such a thing was possible. At that moment, the soldiers asked him to stop. Zed thought he was finally done. He thought he was going to take up his sword and swing it around. Turning away, General Clark ordered everyone to get back to work now. But the boy asked him to stop. Looking at him, the general asked what else he wanted. Zed replied that there was something else he wanted to say. He was sick of collecting these towers, and sick of thinking about the next time he'd be attacked. So it's better to let him die right away. Ryu asked his friend, "What does that mean?" Zed bluntly told the general that he wanted to be sentenced to death. Clark asked, does the guy even realize what his words mean? If this was a second whim, the general would have no mercy on him now. Zed wondered if the general was afraid he'd chicken out. Would they write it down in a crystal ball? Clark replied that there would be no better proof. General Clark immediately ordered the guards to bring the crystal ball, and as quickly as possible. The boy realized he was overjoyed. The guy asked, "They say you're allowed to eat whatever you want before you die?" He wants to decide on a menu now. For his last meal, Zed wants beef verdesan, enough to make your stomach burst. All the soldiers stood with their mouths open. Verdesan beef is the highest quality meat from cows raised in the south of the empire, on the free meadows of Verti. In the game is one of the most precious kinds of food. It gives weightless power with its flavor. If you eat it, you can win the battle. A guy has to eat it before an important fight. Isn't that a fitting price to pay for his life? And if they screw him over, the deal's off. The friend couldn't believe his words. As soon as Zed looked at him, he immediately remembered something. Pointing his finger at his friend, the guy said he was coming with him too. General Clark, after a brief moment of thought, replied that they would. Even the soldiers didn't expect him to say that. Since they are taking the Arahant's life, so be it. Ryu realized that no one was taking his opinion into account. They say this beef is so expensive that it takes about a week per catch. During that time, he doesn't have to work. They're fed the guards food, and the guy can also devote all his time to sports. Ryu talked about how they were about to be killed. Why would he want to work out like that? The guy realized that the game had a special system. When one characteristic exceeds 100, the accumulated points are transferred to the next one. And all of his stats, except for magic, are already maxed out. So his points are about to go all the way to magic. At that moment, the soldier tells them it's time to leave. Zed was glad they had finally arrived. Ryu was grieving, for this was where his life would end. The boy talked about how it was the first time he had ever eaten something so delicious. Zed replied that he should not forget that it was all thanks to him. The flavor tasted good, but he was only interested in his skills. It was as if all the points were being added at once. His first goal had been accomplished, and now it was that time for action. A soldier reported to the general that dinner time had begun. He ordered them to make sure no one interfered. General Clark didn't realize what kind of day was this. There wasn't an ounce of resistance on that guy's face. As if to say, it was like everything was just passing him by. A retired general, of course, but still a knight of the Fifth Circle. There was no way his power could be withstood by some young mage with no mana. He must have made a mistake then, but he'll do it right this time. The general decided to return the shame he had experienced to him in multiples. The guys ate it all. Ryu said it was okay to die now. Zed replied that now was not the time to die. He's fed up and full of energy. Seems like a guy could hit a punching bag for 24 hours. He couldn't wait to experience that strength. As soon as the door opened, the general appeared in the cell. The guy said he was late because they had already eaten everything. Calling him the 218th after correcting him to Zed Arahan, the man tensed. The boy wondered if the general took offense at not being left behind. General Clark thinks he's an impertinent man who believes in pedigree alone. For starters, he'll make his face contort into a grimace of misery. The Arahans are the most elite family of mages. Even the slightest bit of information could play into his hands. Because it could be used to get out of that hole. It was a magical artifact. Using it, General Clark thought this guy was a goner. As soon as the general used the magic artifact, Ryu immediately fell to the ground. Zed stood motionless. The guy immediately shouted to the general to behave more appropriately. Calling him a fucking bastard, Clark tried to attack Zed again, but it was all in vain. He told him to act normal. If he wants to kill him, he should do it properly, not by showing off. The general didn't understand how it was so. He had even used an artifact. He was not affected by magic at all. But for that to happen, the guy's got to be a round above the general himself. So he's from the 6th? The general couldn't believe it. It must be more likely that it was the blood of the Arahants. General Clark had to get to the 5th Circle all his life. And even so, he can't bring the petty mage to his knees. Standing in front of General Clark, the boy asked he was done. The general turned away and said that the execution would take place tomorrow morning. He might be an Arakan, but he couldn't go against the imperial law. The general sat in his office and thought about how he didn't fully understand everything yet. But perhaps it would be useful information for the knights. He decided he needed to write down everything that had happened today. He was so tired, he'd used up all his mana in the artifact. But the report must be finished. Seeing that his friend was conscious, Zed asked how he was feeling. The boy replied that he felt disgusting, like he was going to vomit. Zed replied to his friend that he had very dexterous hands. Showing the keys up his sleeve, Ryu asked how the guy was doing with his skills. Zed realized that it would be dangerous for a normal person, but his friend was simply a master. He said it was because the general was focused on Zed, and he really doesn't give a shit, does he? The friend said he was fine. The boy remarked that he obviously didn't know something about his friend. Zed replied that it was all about carrying stones. He realized his friend was right. His stats had gone up by 10, a great result. The rumors were true, the meat was tasty and nutritious. The guy feels a very good feeling. He wants to get rid of all the fines as soon as possible, but it won't be easy. Zed told his friend they should get out tonight, let him rest for now, and then they would go. Rue asked if they were going to leave right away. The general might notice they were missing. Zed replied that he was sure the general was asleep. The guy didn't understand how this one knew everything. The thing is, the general was wearing a bracelet. Zed doesn't even remember the exact name of this trinket, but it's a thing that instantly releases mana and takes all the power. So he's definitely asleep right now. The fact that he came to lunch with his keys made his plan doubly easy. Once it was deep night, the boys decided to walk slowly. Rue was worried that everything would be all right. Zed replied that if he was scared, he should stay. The boy said no, because he was his last hope. Except they don't have a key to this door. What are they going to do now? Zed asked his friend to step back. With one kick of his foot, there was nothing left of the doors. Ryu asked in surprise, "Is his friend really a mage?" The guards immediately came running to the noise. When they saw the 218th man walking free, they asked what he was doing there. They started yelling that it was an escape. Have someone report to the general as soon as possible. The boys immediately rushed to run. Time was rather short. Almost reaching the main gate, the guys noticed that it was blocked off by a large number of soldiers. One of the soldiers shouted that they must be stopped at all costs. As Zed accelerated and pulled away from his friend, he shouted for him to keep running. Thanks to his strength, the guy one by one massacred all the soldiers. They needed to escape as soon as possible. They tried every way they could to kill the guy, but it was no use. There were fewer and fewer of them. Ryu watched the whole thing with his mouth open. He couldn't believe it was his friend. As soon as General Clark reached the main gate, he saw that all his soldiers were lying on the ground and the gate was open. He realized that the 1818 had escaped. Then he ordered everyone to go in search of him. It was Moda's village near the colony. As the boys looked around, they realized that it looked like they'd lost their way. Zed didn't understand where they were. A friend told him they were in the small village of Moda, with nothing around the colony but the colony. 218 realized that was where they would come first. Ryu told him that the other towns were far away, but they could blend in with the crowd. Handing the clothes to his friend, Ryu told him to put them on. The boy asked why he chose the oldest one. He said there were a lot of poor people there, and they would blend in with the crowd. Ryu said he would go and gather the essentials, and Zed would wait there and keep his head down. The boy pointed out that they didn't have any money. Smiling, Ryu asked, "Who needs them?" Zed had apparently forgotten who his friend was. He was really different from the others. The boy shouted that he would be back soon and that his friend should not dare to go anywhere, for he was his last hope. An hour later, the friend returned. He brought the most important thing, colored lenses. Red eyes give away the Arahans, so you have to be careful. It's Bahal land there. Blue lenses are popular. The Bahal family is very familiar to him. His character was Taurus Bahal, the one he went all the way to the end with. The mage clan Arahan and the knight clan Bahal. Even the eye colors of the warring clans are opposite to each other. Zed thanked his friend for his concern. Ryu told him that he had found a place on the way there where they could rest. The guy didn't realize how come he was there. Opened his eyes and found himself in the game. And now he even had to hide in the stable. But why does Ryu follow him everywhere? He called Zed his last hope. He knows he'll always be in danger because Clark's after him. And he doesn't know anything about Ryu yet. He's a street thief. Now the guy is with him because he needs help, but can he be trusted? The morning of the next day, Zed hadn't gotten a good look in the dark last night and he'd slept on it. Ryu replied that such an elite aristocrat must be uncomfortable there. People learn to live according to what they can afford. Zed said it wouldn't work. They needed to make money. Guys need something to live on. Ryu asked in what way. You can't get caught by the guards. Maybe teach him how to steal? Zed replied that he didn't need to. He'd rather have him find a place. When Ryu asked what it was, the friend said the ring. Underground battles, this was exactly the place Zed was looking for. It was just a matter of time for him. Ryu told his friend that he thought they had come to the wrong place. Zed replied that no, this was exactly where he wanted to be. The fans tried to scream as hard as they could, as they had bet a lot of money on this fight. Zed expected it to be a normal street fight, But it was even cooler than that. Ryu was scared, asking his friend to get out of there. He kept trying to prove to his friend that people out there kill each other. Ika's is as strong as any carry-on prisoner. Guy doesn't think he's going to beat him with his grip, does he? Except Zed's long gone. Grabbing Ika's arm, Zed said, didn't he see that his opponent was already unconscious? Let him fight by the rules. Ryu couldn't figure out what his dumbass friend had forgotten in the ring next to that killer. Turning to the referee standing next to him, the guy asked, was he paid off? The winner is known. Why not stop the fight? Snatching up his hand, Ika's asked who the guy was anyway. If it's an aristocrat, it pisses him off even more. Zed asked, can't you see who he is? Just a bum off the street. People began to resent him because they liked the last fight much better. They did not understand where this poor man had come from. Everyone was demanding their money back. Zed said he'd take responsibility, so what if he fights with Ika's? The guy yelled for everyone to wait. He was about to show them something interesting. Ryu started yelling. He said they didn't belong there. Ika's is stronger than all those prisoners. His odds are only 1 in 100, even 1,000. Does he have any idea what he's gotten himself into? He won't be able to defeat Ika's. He'd better pick another opponent. Zed asked his friend not to make any noise, but rather to go and bet everything on it. Ryu continued to resent him. He insisted that they had better get out of there. The boy offered Ryu some beef as soon as they were done. He replied that Zed shouldn't even try to bribe him. The referee has announced that the fight has now begun and the contenders may begin fighting. Ika said that this homeless man was mad with poverty and hunger. As usual, he looks to be about 15 years old. But what's with the suspicious look in his eyes, and his breathing is too calm? Ika's was also surprised by his stance, for it was definitely different from the others. Threatening, yet calm. He wondered where his anxiety came from all of a sudden. Is he really afraid of some bum? He's Ika's. As soon as Ika started attacking, he aimed to hit Zed hard, but the inexplicable happened in the moment. Zed shouted for him to keep his hands on his shoulders. Zed shouted for him to keep his hands off his shoulders. Ika's couldn't throw a single punch. Zed didn't give him the slightest chance. He kept saying that it was the fastest punch and easy to hit. Sometimes you can pull your center of gravity back to hit even harder. There were questions coming from the audience. Who is this guy anyway? Or maybe Ika's is giving in to him. While Ryu asked the god of war, the god of fortune, the god of miracle to let his friend return at least alive. But once Ryu opened his eyes, he couldn't believe that his friend was actually winning. Ika's didn't understand what was going on. Is some poor man winning it? The man didn't understand why he couldn't dodge this guy's small fists. And there it was, that final blow that sent that huge Ika's into a knockout. Did Zed tell the referee to look over there what he was going to do? Or should the guy start playing without rules too? The referee immediately announced that the fight was over and said that Duolon was the winner. Zed realized it was over before it had even begun. He certainly should have invested less effort. The guy asked, is she kidding? The stakes were much higher. Why did he get so little? Was he really going to be cheated? The woman replied that no way, she really did get it right. Zed insisted that it couldn't be that small. Then he asked, how much did Ryu bet? He said to bet everything. The guy replied that he hated betting, and he had to leave money for dinner. At that moment, a young lady appeared behind him. She said hello to everyone, after which she asked if the guys had time to talk. Zed realized that she was the one the judge was looking at during the fight. The boy asked who else was she. She said that it seemed to be the first time they were there, since they didn't know her name. The girl is the ring mistress. Her name is Gurna. As soon as she tried to ask Zed a question, he immediately started walking past her and saying he wasn't for sale. They were blocked in their path by the girl's guards. Zed asked, do they really want to get one too? How many days do they wish to sleep? They didn't even clam up. Are they really that devoted to that woman? She started saying that the champion Ika's he beat today, she found in the big city. Does the guy know what that means? She will let him go today. She believes that they will meet again anyway. Next time they will talk in a more pleasant environment. The last thing she managed to say before they left was that she likes strong people. Ryu told his friend that it's best not to joke with that woman. She seems to be just a ring mistress, but in reality, she is the most important person in the village. As long as they are there, they will bump into her all the time. Zed replied that he thought she was just an old fox who liked money. That's right, it's exactly like that. She's an old fox. Zed realized she was just trying to take advantage of him. That's what happened to him in the fight world too. As soon as he showed results, hundreds of managers came to him. Almost all of them saw him as a way to make money. They tried to trick him around because he was just a kid who came to the city for a dream. Meeting his current manager was a stroke of luck. He was the one who made him a champion. Thanks to him, he was no longer a loser and became the one who gradually rose to the top, up to the title of champion. Old Fox, he'll see who's better. The boys finally had their portion of venison beef. Ryu was about to devour the first piece of meat when suddenly Zed stopped him. He realized it was a fake. Both the color and the marbling are too different. Ryu didn't understand what marbling was. Plus, the guy said it was kinda weird, since it took a week to get her in prison. If they could have gotten it from a village nearby, they wouldn't have waited so long. And they say it's so valuable. There's no way they're giving it away to all the visitors. Zed thinks it's a Wajasan Sakai. It's always been a rank lower. Ryu replied that whatever she was, Vertisan or Wajasan, it made no difference to his stomach. Zed replied that it's a shame to pay that kind of money and eat fake food. They are within their rights to catch them at it. The man they called asked if the guys had already eaten and wanted to pay. They're taking a long time to eat one meal. Zed said it was fake. He ordered Vertisan beef, didn't he? Let them bring him his order first. The man asked if they even knew where they were. This wasn't a diner. Zed said that was enough. He should call the director. He decided to bring them to the principal after all, before she told everyone in the hall anything. The director asked if they were the scandalized ones. Zed replied that he was one and that he was selling people fakes. The man laughed, after which he told the boy that he should learn to read the atmosphere. Zed replied that he didn't know what the atmosphere was, but he was the one who couldn't read the situation. Who should the guy kill first? All the standing guards pounced on him, saying that this guy was clearly worth a life lesson. The director's satisfied face quickly changed to horror. He couldn't believe that all his subordinates were already lying on the ground. Ryu yelled, "That's what those assholes should do. Does the principal even know who his friend is? The guy who defeated Ikas." The man heard a tale that Ikas was defeated by some homeless guy. Was it really true? The principal asked what the guy wanted him to do. Zed replied that all he wanted was appropriate compensation, all within reason. He has two conditions. The first is that they get their money back. Second, the director himself will now pay for the meat they eat there. Of course it would be at the price of Vertisan. After a brief thought, the director asked, "Are they completely pissed off?" Ryu was happy as a child and talked about how it was the first time he was sleeping on such a soft bed. He told Zed that it was indeed incredible. His friend was indeed an aristocrat. The guy replied that if word got out, this restaurant would really be in trouble. For those who have no reciprocal coin, negotiating is a living hell. It was the first time Ryu had ever seen someone so red-faced. After thanking their friend, the boys decided to go to bed. Waking up in the middle of the night, Ryu called out to his friend a couple times in a whisper. After making sure his friend was asleep, the boy quietly gathered himself and went somewhere else. But as it turned out, Zed wasn't asleep at all. A few days later, Ryu sat on the bed and told Zed that he was very hungry. All he does is exercise. Mages hate sports more than death. Is he practicing because he has no mana? Zed said something like that. Looking at his results, the guy realized that his magic still wasn't increasing. No matter how many times he checked, nothing was changing. He already felt like he was cursed. Zed told his friend that morning exercise was over. It was time to go eat. Ryu asked what they had on the menu today. Potato salad or chicken stew? Zed replied that no, they would have beef today. They haven't been to the meat restaurant for 3 days. The reason is simple. Quarrels are best avoided. And they had eaten 10 portions on the first day, for they had plenty of money. Zed asked his friend how many gold coins they had left. Ryu replied that there were almost none. The prices were so high. He's been playing this game for 10 years, so he knows all the prices. To spend 50 coins in 3 days, you have to throw them in all directions. Ryu seems to think that if his friend is an aristocrat, he doesn't know anything about money. What's he hiding? Maybe he's betting. He should at least know why. The owner of the restaurant, Jianfu, was informed that they had arrived. His pride was stronger than iron plates, and she's suffering because of some guy. He was obviously up to something. The assistant led them into a separate room where the table was already set. The man said there was plenty of meat so they could help themselves. Ryu had no idea how much it cost. He said that if the boys needed anything, they should call him. Zed seemed suspicious of their helpfulness. There didn't seem to be any of them that looked like killers. Inside, it's the same as last time. What were they up to then? Ryu asked. Wasn't Zed hungry? He handed him the special salad, let him eat it all at once. All he has to do is watch the situation. In time, maybe he'll figure out what they're up to. It was at that moment that Zed realized everything. He shouted for Ryu to spit it out of his mouth because it was meat that couldn't be eaten. The boy was upset because if there was poison in there, would he die now? Zed replied that no, he wouldn't be harmed by such a small amount. He suspected they were up to something, but to poison the meat? If he didn't have the specifics, they'd just be killed. Rue was talking about how it had no taste or smell. It was definitely poisoned? What makes his friend so sure? Zed replied that he was an Arakan. The elite do know when something is wrong. But what now? If they were going to be killed, shouldn't they run then? Zed thought, why would they run anywhere? Let them pay, and pay in full. The director yelled that if they came, they should sit there and eat meat. Why are they calling him there? Zed replied that they just wanted to clear up a misunderstanding and ask something. The director thought they had eaten a good meal. That much frog poison is about to have repercussions. The director said what misunderstandings? They're thugs blackmailing him for his money. Zed replied that the principal didn't understand them at all. Let him sit down and talk over a piece of meat. Holding out a piece to him, Ryu said, let him eat this wonderful piece of meat. Director Yan asked why the kid was giving him that. Zed said it was to keep the conversation going. He said he had nothing to talk to them about. Zed replied that it was strange. So does he still want to give them his money? Or is there a reason why he doesn't want to eat it? The guy decided to ask the director directly if the meat was poison. The director started to deny it and said it was all nonsense. Zed asked him a question. Was the principal surprised that they had figured it out? After which he hit the table, which flipped over right in front of the principal. Young fast, what is he doing? Whereupon he saw all the poisoned meat on the floor. Had these guys guessed the poison? Zed started to say that they felt sorry for him and didn't go there. And he turned out to be such a bastard. How dare he poison the meat? He tried not to show it. There was no way they'd really figured it out. The director started shouting that there was no poison. They didn't even have any proof. Zed asked, proof? Then he said there was and showed the director his red eyes. Young realized this guy was an Arahan. Zed said that if he dared to deceive an Arashan, then the price would be his life. If he alone disappears, no one will even notice the disappearance. Falling to his knees, the principal began to apologize and say that he didn't recognize him. Let him forgive him just once. The man didn't understand how an Arakan from the west had ended up on the southern spur, and why hadn't he made himself known right away, and also dressed in rags. John begged for mercy, saying that if they would spare him, he would do anything. And Zed, looking at his tears, fully realized how powerful the Arahan family was. The guys asked if he'd do anything? Then maybe they'll forgive him once. First, don't tell anyone his identity for anything. Secondly, let him give Zed half of his property and he will forget what happened today. The director replied that he could give it all right now. John was genuinely touched by the Arahan's generosity. It is better to be without money than dead, and he's only asking for half. He should bring it before he changed his mind. Rue said that his friend was good, because the director couldn't even say anything. Zed replied that as soon as they got the money, they would leave the village. At that moment she, Gurna, appeared in front of them. She asked, where are those boys going in such a hurry? Are they leaving them again? And Zed turns out to be a much more majestic man than she thought. The guy thought, does she really know he's an Arakan? Had the principal uncovered it in such a short time? Unlikely. He was genuinely scared. So there's only one place she could find out about him. If she tells her that he's only an Arakan, he's definitely out of money. Zed asked why she had come. Could she really need anything from him? She replied that the guy didn't seem to understand her at all. She had business with him, but she was there to meet a client. Zed realized she was referring to Ryu. The boy immediately apologized to his friend, then said he shouldn't have hidden it. Gurna told me that she had learned what Ryu had asked her to do, but there would be a higher price to pay. The guy immediately shouted that no, that was not the agreement. He had already paid a lot of money. She said she didn't have enough money. He thinks it's that easy to look for a missing person. The guy said, how can this be? It was his last hope after all. Zed seemed to realize what was wrong. The guy said she had an offer. It could be connected to the problem at hand. She asked if the guy is offering to do business with her in exchange for helping his friend. Her terms are simple. Let him have one more fight with Ikas, and that's it. As soon as Ryu started to talk him out of it, Zed replied that he agreed. Then he asked if she would continue with Ryu's assignment. The woman replied that naturally, she always keeps her promises. Zed asked why his friend was so sad. They were able to make so much money after all. Ryu replies that he just didn't want to deceive him because he went to her secretly from his friend. He realizes that it was stupid, but he had no other choice. Zed replied that he knew everything, even about the money, but he had only found out today that his friend had gone to her. He didn't feel sorry for the money. It's equal to the help Ryu gave him. But don't let him hide anything from him from now on so that it doesn't happen again. The nastiest thing you can do is undermine someone else's credibility. Wherever he comes from, don't let him become trash. As suddenly Ryu asked his friend not to go to the second fight, he offered to take the money he earned and run away. Zed asked, what about his relative? Ryu replied that they both understood she would back up again. Ryu wasn't stupid enough to fall for Gurna's tricks a second time, but how desperate he was to turn to her. Ryu was grabbing at the already worked rope, and Gurna took advantage of the desperate boy. Zed replied that he had thought about leaving at first too, but then changed his mind. Ryu asked why. He certainly believes in his friend's skills, but she's definitely up to something. The guy replied that it made him want to fight even more. Looking at garbage always makes him want to clean it up. Also, how awesome is it to beat an opponent that you put your all into it? At the same time in Carrion, a soldier informed the general that they were ready for capture. He replied that the first group should be on their way. As it turned out, those rats were hiding right under the general's nose. This time he's going to kill him for sure. 3 days later, they were already standing in the arena. Zed didn't understand why Akasa was still alive. He'd hit him like that. Something was wrong. Ryu said that if Zed feels threatened, then this fight is best canceled. At this point, the referee shouted that the rematch between Akasa and Homelessman starts right now. Ryu saw that the bulky man was repeating his friend's technique exactly. Gurna must have given him some good advice. Maybe told him he's an Arakan with no mana. Zed thinks it's true that he was thrown into a concentration camp. The guy decides to verify this information later. Akasa started attacking. He remembered to drive his fist straight from his chest with maximum effort. Akasa asked, the guy didn't expect this, did he? He thought he was the only one who could do that? The man practiced, and it really worked. Zed was clearly a bit surprised. Almost immediately, the guy noticed something interesting on Ikas's body. The man paused and asked, so it's true? He's a manaless man and a half? The spectators watching the fight from the sidelines couldn't understand. Since when did Ikas become so resilient? Zed was sure this man was definitely wearing an org belt. It was an artifact that increased physical damage by 90%. Since his magic stat was at 0, it was the worst weapon against Zed right now. Is that why he was so pompous? Ryu didn't understand how this was possible, since none of his friend's attacks had gone through. He shouted to Zed that the woman had definitely done something. Zed replied to his friend that everything was fine, after which he asked him to calm down. Ikas asked, is the guy giving up? Zed replied that no way. The boy was really surprised. This was the moment he had been waiting for. The man was at a loss. After all, his opponent had changed his stance. Maybe he should repeat after him too? The strongest person on earth, Kim Jinho, was incredibly happy at that very moment. No one could stand against him for more than a minute. Because of this, he was unable to try out the techniques he had been perfecting for a long time. Let them look at him. He's covered in blood, but he's still holding on. Zed or Kim Jinho, it's the first time he's ever seen something like this with his own eyes. After another blow, Ikas realized that he couldn't even predict his blows, let alone block them. He didn't understand what the hell it was. Zed told him not to even think about falling. He wasn't hurt at all after all. No sooner had Ikas said enough, he clearly wanted to give up, than Zed delivered his final blow. Ikas realized he had lost, and he didn't have the belt anymore. He begged the guy to stop. Zed replied that he couldn't. He wasn't old enough yet. It would be a shame for the guy to end up like this. Zed didn't notice at all as something strange began to happen to the lenses in his eyes. At some point they were gone, and his red eyes showed outward. Things began to happen to his body that even he could not understand. He didn't understand what this unfamiliar feeling was, as if worms were spreading through his body from the inside. Finally, he thought when he saw his magic. It was like he was overflowing with endorphins. This is even better than Zed had thought. In a split second, the guy realized that it had gotten too quiet around him. Running up to him, Ryu asked why his friend had taken off his lenses. The guy replied that he hadn't taken them off. It only came to Zed's attention that his iris was now red. He hadn't felt the lenses fall out. Had they melted because of the mana? Ryu said that maybe he just hadn't seen him without them in a while. But it was as if the color of his eyes had become more intense. Abruptly, all the people started yelling that it was an Arakan, because this guy had red eyes. Zed shouted to his friend that their case was bad. They could have guards after them. Ryu said he'd go crazy like that. They should have gotten out right away. To Gurna, he shouted one last time that he would reach her, so he could keep looking for his friend's relative. She realized that she should have listened to the general. She decided she was going to tear this guy to shreds for sure. How much had she lost? Isak was a high-ranking wrestler and brought in a lot of money. He received 600 gold pieces in 3 years, but now it had lost its marketability. For the belt, she gave 200 gold pieces, and to the general 1,200. That makes her loss 2,000 gold pieces. She should have listened to the general right away, and then she wouldn't have lost her money. The woman couldn't come to her senses. She kept cursing Zed. She was ready to tear him apart right now. The boys quickly ran in to get the lenses and money. But when they came out, the village was already full of guards. After the guards passed them, Ryu told his buddy to sit and wait for him until he found them a cart. A man on a cart stopped in front of them and said that Mrs. Gurna had sent him. She had something to tell them, so he had come to fetch them. While in the cart, Ryu asked his friend if everything was okay. He replied that no, they were probably all gathered in one place and waiting for them. Ryu didn't understand why they were going there themselves then. Zed replied that they had to do it sooner or later. On reaching their destination, they saw the general, Mrs. Gurna, and a large number of soldiers. The general said they dared to steal the keys and escape. That's what rats do, not magicians. The gentleman said it was very sad. If they had cooperated with her from the beginning, none of this would have happened. Zed replied that even if it were possible to rewind time, he wouldn't do otherwise. They couldn't kill him anyway. The general yelled to the guy that he would end him right here and now. Let no one interfere. Zed asked his friend to step back. The boy silently carried out his friend's errand. General Clark asked, "Is the kid really going to fight him? He's clearly braver than the average mage." Zed proudly replied that his chances of winning were 50%. Going up against a strong opponent, you don't have to brace yourself. Going up against a weak one, you have to be careless. Even though he's a fifth circle knight, the guy doesn't need to be afraid of a 50-50 chance. The general said the guy's still got a lot of nerve. Great, then he'll release all his energy right away. This was exactly what Zed wanted. He needed very little. Just to feel those long-forgotten feelings. And in that moment, he became a fighter again. The peculiarity of the born fighter was put to use. Once again, the lenses could not withstand the pressure of those eyes. After being dealt a severe blow by General Clark, Ryu became very worried about his friend. As soon as all the dust cleared, General Clark realized the guy was gone. Zed shouted to the general that he was upstairs. But it wasn't just Zed anymore. It was something new called a glow. It was a thunderous aura. General Clark couldn't understand how such a thing could be possible. Thunder aura is a special energy that ignores the basic 4 elements: water, air, earth, and fire. It is admired by all mages. It is the energy that even the founder of the legendary Arahan family could not master. That very power of his blood, something that was not immediately available to him. General Clark cried out that those who rely most on the strength of their own kind are most despised. All of the general's attempts to strike at Zed were in vain. He shouted that the guy would definitely not be able to dodge this blow. As soon as he said that, he immediately saw the shield. Having lost his guard for a time, the general did not expect to receive a blow. It was the last in this confrontation. The general thought about the fact that he couldn't be a mage, could he? How does this guy manage to throw punches? The mages use their power to keep the knights at bay, and the knights trying to break through the magic to get closer. It's always been the law of this world, an unchanging rule throughout history. General Clark couldn't think of this guy as just another magician. The man realized he needed to create distance so he could swing his sword. Before he could react, the guy was suddenly at his side again. The general couldn't keep his distance, so he couldn't swing his sword. Zed threw a final blow that would not allow the general to stand on his feet afterward. The man flew aside and hit the rock. The soldiers immediately wanted to run up, but the man ordered them to stay back. He went on to say that, as expected of the Arahan family, truly formidable. The man admitted that he had lost, after which he asked to just kill him. Zed asked if he wanted to know why he lost. The general replied that he didn't want to know, he just asked him to kill him. The guy started saying that there was only one reason: he worked harder and practiced more. Clark asked, hard work and training? Then yelled for the guy not to talk nonsense. It was because he was an Arahan. Does he have any idea what untalented people have to do? People like this guy ruined his life. Zed replied that he was weaker than the general right now. If he had more experience and better reactions, he would obviously lose. His inferiority complex blinded him, and it was this that prevented the general from developing. Let him not look for the cause of defeat in others, it lies only in him. Clark replied that it was ridiculous. To think that the young magician reminded him of chivalry, he realized it would be a big blow to his future. So once again he asked him to kill him. Zed knew it was a hassle. If the guy kills him out there, the Empire will put a bounty on him. But he can't leave him alone either. The guy just decided to stop there. He started to take on his old self. Gurna asked, why are they all standing around? Now would be a good time to kill Arahan. That's their job after all. The guy realized that such a large number of enemies could bring him a lot of trouble. The soldiers didn't realize what was happening. In a second, a strong wind picked up. They assumed it was someone's magic. Zed realized there was a mage nearby. The situation wasn't good, and he needed to get out of there as soon as possible. The storm stopped very quickly. When he looked around, he realized that there was not a living soul around him. Everyone had died without a single scream. Not even Gurna survived, although she may have been the one who helped him, which is unlikely. He realized that if things went wrong, he might have to take all the blame. At some point, the guy remembered his friend. He started calling out to him and asking for him to respond. Ryu withdrew. After seeing what he saw around him, he immediately asked, did his friend do it? The guy said no, it wasn't his doing. He said there was a magician nearby. Then he suggested we get the hell out of there. At the last moment, Ryu noticed something strange on the ground. It was a map. It was too clean, as if it had just been dropped. The man who was watching them clearly didn't want to be seen by the guys. He was watching them from above. Just as Zed thought it was a magic card, all he had to do was channel some mana, a magical card used by a secret organization to exchange coded messages. The emblem of the Black Flame Arahan. They swear absolute loyalty only to the head of the Arahan family. Their scope and missions are shrouded in mystery. The Empire's largest and most elite secret organization. Map number 4. If Zed remembers correctly, the first means acceptance or affirmation, the second denial or rejection, the third is negotiation or offer. Fourth is surveillance or defense. Is Arahan protecting him? They rejected him for lack of mana, and now they've changed their minds? At this moment, the guy remembered that he wanted to check his mana status. After defeating Clark, part of the penalty was removed and his mana increased to 3. Is there an experience system like in the game? As expected, he is currently inactive, probably because his stats are too low. Is it necessary to have 5 mana to activate it? Ryu woke up and asked why his friend was awake. Zed replied that he couldn't sleep. The boy asked what they were going to do now. Zed wondered what he meant by that. They would go to Prilda. He had said he was separated from someone there, hadn't he? Ryu said that a friend had mentioned earlier that he hadn't found the coachman's body, meaning that the rumors had already spread. How do they get there without a wagon? Zed replied that the problems reminded him that they needed to adjust their route a bit. The village of Tamaya is an outpost of the southern front. The man said he would begin his search immediately. He, Torres Bahal, would hunt down the dishonorable Arahants and execute them. Bowing to the Lord, the man asked if he knew him. The Lord replied that he did, and then said he had a new assignment. The man said that Arahan had escaped from prison and was on the run after the murder of General Clark and several residents of the town. The Lord leaves it all to his discretion. As Bahal's successor, let him judge for himself and uphold the honor of the family. He, Torres Bahal, is willing to put his life on the line to do the Lord's bidding. Ryu told the guy that however he thinks about it, it's crazy. Zed replies that he's been saying the same thing for 5 days. How much longer is this going to go on? They must be the only fools going straight to the front lines. On the outskirts is the front line that blocks the demon beasts. Each family is assigned a specific territory. The place they're headed to is Tamaya, a village on the very front line where demon beasts pass through from time to time. The reason they head there in particular is because of the transportation gates. They are so expensive that even some nobles can't afford it. Rue said that the friend would realize how crazy it was after some demonic beast ripped out of him. Zed said it was the best option they had. Ryu shared some jerky with his friend, saying that you never know when you might die. At some point, Zed felt a vibration on the ground. He informed his friend that something was coming, just as they finished talking. Ryu said, just don't let him tell him that it's really a demonic monster. Zed replied that he preferred that this was really it. He realized that it wasn't one or even two vibrations. There was no way that so many demonic beasts under Bahal's watch could have gotten past the southern front line. A white horse with blue eyes, it's definitely the Bahal Knights. Even at a rough estimate, there are about 50 of them. Zed prayed that they would just pass them by. At that moment, one of them found signs of a campsite. Mages of at least the 5th circle are required to join a knight's troop. In other words, there are at least 50 knights of the Clark rank. Ryu told his friend that at least he should definitely run. If they caught Ryu, he would be safe, but Arahan would be killed. The boy said that there was no need to be so dramatic. They probably wouldn't kill them anyway. Zed replied that the boy could see that he was trembling with fear. He asked the guy not to worry because he still had a way to go that might work. Suddenly appearing, Zed asked why they were taking so long to find the two men. Remembering the map, he realized he was under surveillance or protection. If they were going to die anyway, it was better to try than to regret it. After introducing himself, Zed Arahan said he would like to speak with their leader. Zed wanted to just talk, but he was immediately attacked. He didn't understand why the enemy had stopped so abruptly. As it turned out, it was just blocked. The guy thought they might just be watching from somewhere, but he didn't expect them to be so close. Even with 100, he couldn't feel them. This is the hull of Arahan's black mirrors. They ordered them to turn back. If they did, nothing would happen. The man said he must be Torres Bahal, Bahal's successor. Zed wondered, Torres Bahal? Such a familiar presence, as if it seemed to be a part of him. The character he'd played the longest. Someone who was with him all the way to the end. The guy knows it's not the right time, but to see him in person, it's very nostalgic. The man asked again, was he Zed Arahan? One of the black mirrors repeated that if they turned back, nothing would happen. They were definitely trying to protect him, but why go so far? Torres realized they were the same secret organization he'd only heard about. Even knowing who he was, the guy dared to pull stunts like that? He was glad that Arahan had finally crossed the line. They will pay with their heads for daring to provoke Torres Bahal. He shouted that this was not going to happen. In a split second, a magic circle appeared below them. The soldiers didn't understand how they had set it up, but predicting the exact location and building it before the situation even unfolds? It's definitely not level 5 or 6 magic. This guy's a level 7 mage. He said as soon as they lifted their leg, there'd be an explosion. Torres asked if Arahan really wanted war with Bahal. As the man had already said, let them rather turn back. Even Lord Bahal didn't want that. Torres asked, how dare he insult Bahal? Zed realized that if it's still early in the game, Torres is at most a 6th round magician. The outcome is obvious, he can't win this fight. If a full-scale battle breaks out there, Torres and the Knights will be destroyed. It was Bahal's first secret technique called the Lion's Roar. Impossible because it requires at least 7 circle magic. If Torres doesn't stop, he'll die for sure. Zed ordered the Black Mirror body to deactivate the magic circle. If they can't hear him, have them deactivated. He replied that it was impossible. They were only following orders from the High Lord. The order was to protect him, but not to obey orders. Zed shouted that then he should only protect him. Why is he trying to kill Bahal's heir? That would be an abuse of power. With his level, he can accomplish his mission without killing him. Have him deactivate the magic circle immediately. After which he yelled for Torres to stop too. The guy told him to shut up. He killed the general and innocent civilians. Torres will make sure they pay. Zed replied that it was a misunderstanding, they just needed to talk. He shouted that he would only talk to Zed after bringing him to his knees. After striking, Zed realized that the Black Mirror body had just failed to explode and obeyed him. If it wasn't for the Black Mirror case, he would definitely be dead right now. He had broken 4 layers, creating a 7 circular wind barrier, not yet complete, and yet there was so much power in it. It's feedback from the creation of an incomplete secret technique. He said he was honored to see the Lion's Roar in action. Zed asked, feeling better? Why use the secret art if he wasn't ready for it? All the soldiers immediately rushed to Lord Torres. Zed said it was a mana drain. If they don't help him immediately, he'll be in danger. It's useless. They can't cure mana reflux if their circle is lower than the victim's. Only if there's someone out there with a lap higher than Torres. That someone is a Black Mirror. Zed ordered them to heal him. Black Mirror asked, "Is the guy serious?" The guy replied that Torres was an old friend of his. The man replied that it was nonsense. A knight is an enemy, he can never be a friend. He replied that if Torres died there, Arahan would not be able to avoid open war with Bahal. How does that help them? Doesn't he realize that his death could be good for Arahan, especially since she brought it on herself? Nothing to do with his mission. Zed realized he didn't have much time. He grabbed his sword and said that then his mission was over. The guy's always kept his word. If they're watching him, they must know he never bluffs. The man replied that if the head of the house found out about it, he would be furious. Zed replied that it was only his burden. Let him just heal that guy. The soldiers shouted for the guy to stop, for he was the one who had allowed the mage to lay hands on the heir. Zed said that was enough. Right now, the only one who can save Torres is the mage. Or would they rather their heir die? The soldiers cried out as they saw the Lord's mana contours begin to stabilize. Ryu saw them disappear, whereupon he asked his friend what happened. After them, a new blank card was left behind. It was magic card number 9, status abandoned or survived. Ryu asked if those mages from before were them too, and the map was the same after them. The guy answered that yes, they said he was on his own now. Zed wondered how his friend knew their name. Ryu replied that even children knew it. Zed replied that he thought it made sense. In any case, they really should lay low. The soldiers were on full alert. If anything happened, they would be dead in an instant. Zed said that knights are people who value honor. Killing the man who saved their lives was against all their principles. Knights give their lives for honor. Mages will kill a friend if it benefits them. The soldier came up to them and said his heir to pass to him. He told me it was minor tea, grown by his family. Its flavor is truly exquisite. Zed replied that he did smell wonderful. Then he asked how the Lord was doing. Lord Torres replied that thanks to him, he was feeling much better. Zed said he doesn't like formalities, so maybe they can talk casually. At some point, Arahan and Bahal started talking literally like old friends. Torres said that then, before he gets to the point, he should probably thank the guy for saving his life. He actually thanks the mage. If he is the heir of Bahal, his pride must be so great that it pierces the sky. Torres suggested we skip the small talk and get to the point. He said the general's murder was a misunderstanding. What did the guy mean? Zed replied that it was only what he said. Now he's going to try to explain. The guy gave a detailed account of everything, from where he was imprisoned to how he got there. Of course, he left out the mana discovery and the thunder pulse. If it was self-defense, it may be justified. But the question is the story really true? Zed replied that if he had no intention of making light of the situation, he would have left the Lord there to die. There was no more reliable way. Torres replied that it was true. The Lord seemed to have misunderstood the situation. The Lord offered him the Minar powder as an apology for making the wrong assumption. Zed replied that if he was going to apologize, the guy preferred to honor another request, just to find Rio's missing brother. Torres replied that it wasn't good for him at all. It wasn't very magical. Zed replied that he didn't care. He promised to help. Ryu couldn't believe that his friend had taken advantage of Bahal's favor for him. Ryu asked if Zed was hungry. He said he could go look for their favorite beef. The boy replied that as soon as he was done, they would go together. Torres didn't understand how a mage from a caste that derided sweat as barbaric would sweat. He had heard that Zed had no mana. For a magician, lack of mana is like a knight lacking a sword, and yet he does not give up but only goes forward. Torres had made his decision. With this more chivalrous than any knight mage, he would definitely make friends. Seeing the very beef in front of him, Ryu said that they really went to great lengths to prepare something so rare. Torres replied that they take arahana, which is the least they can do. It also has a lot of protein in it, which is good for building muscle. He said it was time for everyone to sit down. No point in wasting time before a good meal. Round table with no seats of honor. Very much like Torres, Zed liked him more and more. Ryu asked, "Is Zed sure it's safe to eat? What if it's poison?" He replied to his friend that it was okay. Let him take his word for it. Ryu said it was much tastier than anything they had eaten before. Torres asked if they liked it. The boys said yes, it was very good. Nevertheless, nothing in this world is given for free. By giving something so expensive, they must want something in return. Several soldiers almost immediately got up from the table and said they couldn't take it anymore. Torres apologized on their behalf. Zed replied that the Lord should not worry about it, and if he was thinking of punishing them, he shouldn't. They've seen mages as enemies since childhood. Instead of punishing them, let them try to understand their side. But more importantly, wasn't he going to tell them something? Torres asked as they noticed it. They had planned to go to Frelda to search for Ryu's brother. Could they postpone the trip for one day? He would like to show the members that Zed is a good man. One day would be enough for that. Zed asked if Ryu was okay with it. The boy said no, he didn't think one day could make a difference. Southern front, behind the Tamaya wall. The lad told Lord Torres that it was a low-grade beast. The Lord replied that well done, everyone. Zed didn't understand what Torres was thinking. Dragging him out there? He just accepted it, but still. Lord assembled a team of 20 men to put together an advanced search party. Since there is a lot of beast activity on these two fronts, the search was quite difficult. Zed couldn't think of anything else. Maybe it was because of that party. In Bahal, it is customary to throw a party after an assignment to celebrate the safe return of deployed military personnel. So his plan is to include him in that warm, encouraging atmosphere where everyone praises each other. One of the soldiers reported that they had found unknown footprints. Torres asked, "Did anyone recognize them?" "Looks like the tracks of an unknown animal. Protocol requires them to return and report it." The Lord replied that it was foolish to return so soon. They're in Sector 1 after all. Even if it's an unknown creature, it's low grade. But still, even if it's low grade, not knowing what it is makes it dangerous. Zed asked if they needed help. Lord asked if he knew what the creature was. The boy replied that he knew. It was Vasilisa, a mid-ranked beast. They would have no trouble dealing with it. The soldiers asked, "Does the Lord really trust him?" The beast from the south and the mage from the west claims to know. Zed asked if there was evidence that the beast was only found in the south. Maybe Arahan just has more complete records of the beast than they do. The soldiers began to mock him. Zed asked how dare the ordinary members of the squad mock Arahan. Lord Torres shouted that enough was enough. It would be better for everyone to keep quiet. Then he apologized to Zed for his subordinates. Lord Torres said he hoped they could get along, but things aren't going so smoothly. Zed yelled for Torres to duck. The Lord ordered everyone to stand at battle stations and prepare. They saw that there were two monsters. The Lord ordered them to attack the one on the right. Torres realized that they were completely out of commission. Zed realized that the knights were trained to perfection, but they couldn't penetrate the skin of this monster. Suddenly, Zed ordered everyone to lie down on the ground. The soldiers immediately became indignant. Why should they follow his order? Lork shouted that this attack sprayed poisonous needles in all directions. Getting hit by such an attack is very painful. Zed told Torres that their next attack would be aimed downward, and it would be hard to dodge. They just have to take them out before then. Zed asked Torres if he could leave the monster on the left for him and his soldiers. There's no time. They need to decide soon. Torres replied that they would deal with him quickly, so let Zed not dare die. The boy wondered who was taking care of who in this situation. Zed replied that he was counting on him then. Lord Torres has ordered everyone to follow him. They'll take the one on the left. He'll lead the way. If his favorite character's fighting so hard, there's no way he's just going to stand on the sidelines. Zed shouted to the monster that he was looking in the wrong place altogether, for his opponent was him. The guy realized that this monster only had one weak point, and that was his crown on his head. Just as Zed struck the strongest blow, it appeared. The demon's breath. This is the key ingredient for the elixir. Pour holy water, and chances are it will turn into an elixir. An elixir is an item that increases stats. For him, all he can increase is mana. It's a 100% mana increase. It was time to go help the Lord. As it turned out, he was very far behind them. Once Zed got to them, they clearly had a lot of questions for him. Looking at Zed, the Lord asked, "Is this really QE energy?" He replied that yes, anyone could say that it was. He asked how it happened, since the Lord thought he had no mana. The ring of mana surrounding the heart is formed at birth. Sometimes it takes longer, but by the age of 6, the circuits should be joined. That means Zed, who's 15 years old, still hasn't had a connection. In 1,000 years of history, it's never happened before. Zed asked Torres if he could take something back. The Lord replied that of course, since he had killed the beast, the loot was his. He's been playing this game for over 10 years, and has never gotten 2 demon breaths at once. Today it's a real jackpot. The guys were discussing Arahan, how he had killed 2 unknown monsters today, and was able to gain chi energy. He even gave away the skins of the beasts. The more they heard about him, the more they thought he was different from ordinary mages. Walking up to Zed, the soldier thanked him for saving him earlier. He hesitated, thus exposing everyone. Zed hopes they like it now. He thinks they'll help Ryu tomorrow in finding his brother. Turning to the boys, Lord Torres asked them to step outside for a bit. They had done a good job today, and it seemed that the knight's opinion of Zed had changed. Everyone who was on the mission said they were going to go help their friends tomorrow. The boy replied that they must be exhausted from the day, but it's great. The Lord replied that even if they were tired, it was natural for them to work. Torres thinks he needs to visit his family. The head is very shocked to hear about today. Zed asked if he would be scolded. He says he's ready for that. After meeting with his head, he would meet with the head of the city of Frinda. He promised Ryu to do his best to help him find his brother. Zed told his friend that this was wonderful. The heir of Bahal himself would help him in his search for his brother. As it turns out, Ryu was looking for the wrong person all along. He has a sister named Lisa, who is about 13 years old. She has long blonde hair. That's all they initially managed to find out. Let them try to find out among the slaves from small and medium-sized families in the city. Zed decided to start with the shopping group where Ryu used to work. The guy told him it was just around the corner from there. He told me that this was the place, Hamel's trading company where he worked, but they set him up and kicked him out. Zed said they might recognize him, so he would go alone. Ryu replied that was fine, then added that Zed did look noble. The man said hello to Zed, then thanked him for deciding to visit them. He asked if the guy was looking for anything in particular. Zed asked, "Is this Halim's trading firm?" The man laughed and said it looked like he was wrong. This was a slave market. Zed asked, "Is this a slave market?" Didn't the man just ask him if he was looking for good? Immediately his face changed, and he said that it looked like the guy wasn't a noble. How could a little brat like that pull a stunt like that? Zed replied that it looked like he had made a mistake. What if he's honorable? How dare he deceive a merchant? A true nobleman never travels alone. He knew from the beginning that this was a dirty business. Zed asked, is he that witty or that stupid? The man decided to teach the boy a lesson. If he doesn't want to get hurt further, let him answer his questions immediately. Zed thought the building belonged to Hamel's trading firm. Why was he there? The man said the previous owner went bankrupt, so they took it over. The guy asked who DeVito was then. The man said he owned the biggest slave market in the southern region. He's their next target. Zed then asked where everyone was. The man asked if he was talking about the product. Then the guy couldn't take it anymore. Slaves are people too. Do they think it's okay to treat people as objects? At least let them live with some decency. It's not that hard, is it? He ordered him to show him the way right away. He directed Zed at once. Keeping people in a place like this. In fact, seeing it made him angry all over again. Zed asked if there were still people locked up in there. The man replied that no, everyone was there. No blondes, no young slaves. They cost more. She's probably sold or taken somewhere bigger by now. Zed said he was giving him one last chance to do the right thing. Have him bring all the money from the vault. After freeing all the slaves, Zed locked the man in a cage and told him to let him feel it now. He distributed the entire fortune to the rescued slaves. The knight sent them to decent lodgings. For a man like him, this kindness is unthinkable. They shouldn't have thanked him. It was the least he could do for them. As they ate, Zed listened to their stories. Talking to people who have been through a lot can bring unexpected information. Now it has happened again. His name is Gordon, and he used to be an assistant in the Chervil family. After the family split up, he somehow ended up there. Zed said he thought they'd been wiped out. It's a good thing the man survived. He said it was pure luck. If Arahan was famous among mages, then Chervil was revered among blacksmiths. In their heyday, people flocked there just to get a Chervil artifact. But then, they were destroyed by the Empire for treason. Now their name is barely whispered in history. This was not only the case in history, but in the game he played. There were no heirs left to whom they could pass on their craft. For an empire still at war with the beasts, this is a great loss. The glory days are in the past. If it had continued, there would be amazing artifacts today. Gordon would like to tell him something, on the condition that only he knows. Does he promise to keep it a secret? Once outside, Gorduk whispered to Zed that Chervil's true heir, Lacto, was alive. Gordon told me that his chief assistant had died instead. They had managed to swap clothes before they burned the body. If everything went according to plan, he's hiding in Maersk right now. Zed realized this was nuclear-grade information. But even if he is alive, being a fugitive, it is almost impossible to meet him. Zed thanked him for telling him. He said he hoped he'd meet him someday. Gordon told him because he sees him as a trustworthy man. The guy asked why Ryu wasn't eating. Had he lost his appetite? Don't let him get upset. They'll find more evidence at DeVito's tomorrow. The man asked, did he just tell DeVito? Absolutely not. He is on a completely different level. Don't they know who supports him? Zed replied that it didn't matter because Baha'u'llah's supporters were behind them. The man went on to say that DeVito's connections stretch throughout the empire. Rumor has it that Arahan is his biggest client. Zed replied that it couldn't be. Why would Arahan want to go all the way south? The man said there was a clear reason. The loss of an enemy is his gain. Capturing all the slaves would hurt the southern noble families, including Bahal. Zed thought that if it was Arahan, it sounded very plausible. Can the body of the Black Mirror then protect DeVito? It's not just about the slave then. This could lead to an imminent war between Bahal and Arahan. Zed, if what he said is true, Ryu worries that his friend is putting himself at risk. The guy told his friend not to worry. He's not just doing it for him, but because it's the right thing to do. He's just acting on his convictions. Either way, they're going to have to deal with DeVito. As soon as Zed stepped inside, the man started yelling, "What is this brat doing? Does he even know where he is?" Calling Zed a little nobleman's brat, they said that even such people could easily get their heads bashed in. Zed said that trading with Arahan had really spoiled them. As soon as they saw his eyes, they immediately fell to their knees. He wondered, is this guy a DeVito? Judging by his clothes, he's just a lackey. But to react like that, he must be from the Black Mirror case. The guy hoped it wasn't, but it's reality. The man asked what brought such a noble guest to such a filthy place. Did he hear the guy trash the Hamel market yesterday? Looks like the name Arahan doesn't impress him. The man thought he wouldn't dare show up, but he's apparently braver than that. Or maybe he's just ignorant. Zed tells him that as of today, Arahan is severing relations with them. He's taking the remaining slaves. The man immediately apologized for laughing. Did he not know manners? To look into Arahan's eyes and think he would stay alive? He asked when the guy was going to kill him. Then he said, "Stop talking. Since he is an honorable guest, the man will not kill him. Let him consider it a life lesson. It can't be helped. Fortunately, there's only one Black Mirror member. If it's around the fifth circle, it should be doable." Zed realized that if he threw the first punch, he would definitely kill him. Suddenly, Zed hears someone ordering us to surround the building. The first and second squad are ordered to break in and kill everyone.